tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Everybody, welcome to the AfterBuzz TV 30 for 30 After Show. Officially the episode for 4 days in October. Maybe the greatest story in the history of sports. I don't know. I think that. So there you go. But yeah, boom! I just put it out on the table. I took my cards and I put them on the table. So here we are. This is the show. I'm joined today. I'm Ben Bateman, and I'm joined today by my wonderful co-host that I'm so happy to see back in studio. We have Kevin John in a checkered shirt. How are you, Kevin?
I'm great, and I'm gonna have to refute what you just said. I think the best story in the history of sports is Mark Sanchez's butt fumble on a New York Jets couple years ago.
God.
By far number one.
Had to keep it going. Before. No,
not
I
unfounded.
can take it.
Not unfounded.
Hey man, he's not on my team anymore. I don't care.
He is, and I just had to throw that in. I'm Kevin John. This is Steph
Whatever.
Z.
I'm Steph Z. But I don't know that I agree that it's the best ever. I agree that it's the best rivalry piece.
It's fair, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so many good sports movies.
Like, I remember where I was when I saw the butt fumble. So, like, it's actually something that do you remember? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
of course I remember. It was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I had a house full of people at my house.
So
it was
sweet.
decorated everywhere. And there I was on the couch by myself. My mom was in from New York. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the butt fumble forever changed American history. Not sports, but just American history.
If there's a small chance that you're watching this and you're unaware of what we're talking about, I mean, literally, if you Google butt fumble, it'll be the first thing that comes up. But essentially what happened was Mark Sanchez, in some sort of weird, confused handoff, managed to run into the ass of one of his offensive linemen, fumble the ball.
I think it was a center,
and
actually.
the ball was returned for a touchdown, I believe. And it has gone down in history over the last several years as like the
it's
not
the
top
number one
10
blooper.
It's ever. And
ever. I'll give you that.
My ex-girlfriend was not interested in sports, but I was able to get her interested in sports just via that clip because it's so entertaining.
See, the question is, when are they going to do a 30 for 30 on the butt fumble? I mean, I think we have a fan base for it.
I'd rather be embarrassed by my butt fumble than, per se, some of the more recent things that my ex-coach did for my team.
That's 100% irrelevant with butt fumbling.
Not really.
I think butt fumbling
that's
is
a good thing to be Like, I think that's fine. The Jets go down as the butt fumble. You got some crappy people connected in your San Francisco network there.
Well, we can talk crap. We can talk crappy San Francisco.
Beat a man while he's down. Right?
I'm just saying.
Beat a man while he's down.
But let's get back to the butts. Let's get back to the things that matter. We are going to talk to you guys today about 30 for 30, 4 days in October, which is part of the first season.
The original, right?
Yeah, the original run. And when they were trying out the product, this was one of the big promo ones they used because it's very theatrical. The trailer for this is probably as good as the movie, weirdly enough. As funny as that is, like, the story is so dramatic, but the movie itself is such a linear retelling of the story that the trailer, because of the music and everything and all the old like rivalry clips it shows, it's kind of just as exciting. And I remember before like Netflix had all the 30 for 30s, I went on Amazon and I bought the box set, the DVD box set of the first season, largely because I wanted to watch this one. But it wasn't in the first, like, they released it in two halves.
You got screwed.
The first half of the 30 for 30s were released in the first box set, and this was part of the second half. So I ended up having to buy the second half once it came out as well, just so I could watch this. And I've seen this one like 9 times. Yeah. But before we start talking about that, I want to talk to you guys really quickly about Mazda.
Oh, I love Mazda.
Before we continue, we would like to thank our sponsors for supporting the show, Mazda. And Mazda has a very important question for you. Does driving matter to you? There's over 4 million miles of road in the U.S. to find out. That's a lot of ground to cover. A lot of highways, freeways, wrong ways, long ways. They're all here waiting to be driven on. So do you take the left turn at Albuquerque or just keep on going? Do you wake up early Sunday morning for a drive before the traffic does? Or do you take the long, winding road home for a change? If driving matters to you, just get out and drive. Why? Because driving matters. Mazda. All right, guys, let's be back to the show.
Man, you got real serious when you said that, man. You were like
That
freaking.
was real cute, man.
Yeah, Stephanie was even
good.
getting excited over here watching you.
Yeah, well.
But
You know.
that was intense. Like you were doing a monologue or something.
Right.
Anyway, back to the
Anyway,
Red Sox.
tangent.
Focus, Kevin.
What do you guys
I
think?
know.
First
ADD.
impressions of 30 for 34 Days in October.
I'm gonna say this, man. I love how
I'm gonna
Steph
say
is already
this,
like-
man. Yo,
I'ma
what
say
up?
this.
Yo,
I'ma-
bro, I'm gonna say this.
Yo, we could eat, but no, this is what I'm gonna say is, I was really kind of disappointed, and the reason I say I was kind of disappointed is because this is one of the greatest sports stories. It's one of the most revered, respected, highly regarded, praised, immortalized stories of all time in sports. So my expectations were like, boom, going into this. We knew about the heated rivalry. We knew that they came back down from an unparalleled 3-0 deficit in the AL CS to win. Just everything, the magnitude surrounding it was just astronomical. So when I actually went to watch it, I was just expecting fireworks and, everything. And all it was when I watched it was just a retelling of what I already knew. And one of the things I admire about these 30 for 30s and love them so much is because they usually give insight to the viewer. They give some kind of insight, wisdom, some kind of unknown perspective or narrative into the events that transpired. All the 30 for 30s do that. You learn something. But I was watching this and I was like, I'm not learning anything. They didn't dig anywhere. There was no depth to it. It just retold what happened. So I was a little
Really
disappointed.
interesting. I think that's so interesting. While I was listening to you say that, I wonder, because I'm a Yankees fan and I was in New York for that series watching it, because it was such an event, and because I felt that, like, you were just like, I just saw it all over. Like, it was just, a news clip for you, kind of. But because I lived it, in now seeing it from the other side, it was kind of interesting to me. Because I lived that same thing, but from a completely different place than the Red Sox did. So that's really interesting that you say that. And it's, again, we all always bring our different perspectives to it, which makes the show fun. But yeah, I wasn't disappointed in it. I actually freaking cried. I did. And I'm
Well,
that
of course
girl.
you're
like,
a Yankees fan.
No, but I don't mean
every
because
Yankee
that. No,
cried.
I didn't know. But listen, don't interrupt yet. What I'm saying is, because I was emotional for the Red Sox.
Yeah.
I got their players. I got their personality. I got their staff. You get bonded. So I don't necessarily agree with that, because you feel in the bond. Like, I don't think you can be a sports fan, a true sports fan, and not feel something for the Red Sox while watching this 30 for 30. And that's why I think it's good. But again, you're right. In the 30 for 30s now, you do get that insight. You do get that fact. You do get that perspective, because, and again, we all like and follow sports a lot. So we
Absolutely.
have a certain amount of knowledge. So we like those interesting facts that we don't know. But to me, this was a little bit more of, it made me feel something. As the other ones are like, oh my God, they were so good because I know something. Oh, there you go, Jesse.
A lot of the sports docs have a very particular formula.
Yeah.
Like you see, like the best example I can think of is NFL Network's A Football Life, which are very entertaining, but they're very formulaic. They're just straight retellings of the history and the interviews. This is that same thing. It is very linear. But to me, the funny thing about this is that, and I notice this every time it comes on, the first 20 minutes are the best part by a long shot. And then everything after that, you're kind of like, well, now I know what's happening. I know what's going to happen. It's still exciting, but it's that first sequence when Kevin Millar gets walked,
Right.
and then Dave Roberts steals second, and they're sitting there in the bar, and it's Bill Simmons, and he's with who's the guy he's with? Is he like a Boston announcer?
Lenny Clark.
Lenny Clark. Yeah, he's a writer, right?
Yeah.
And he's sitting there with him. And that piano piece comes in, and he's like, "There's a chance here, right?"
Yeah.
And he's like, and that's what I got like emotional. I remember the first time watching
Right.
in that moment, because it's the fan base, and then Billy Miller comes up and he gets this hit to center, and Roberts comes in and scores, and everybody goes nuts, and then Poppy hits the home run, and then you go to game 2. But it's that first game is the one, and then the rest of the series you have like bits and pieces. The Schilling part is pretty cool with the bloody sock, and you definitely have like some cool stuff with. A-Rod being kind of a sissy, batting the ball out of, what the hell is his name?
Running like that, the first baseman.
Oh, when he
Right,
deflected it,
Bronson Arroyo, right?
The first baseman.
Arroyo, he was
Yeah.
the pitcher.
And it is kind of funny too, because, and again, I'm not, I know I do throw you under the bus a lot, Kevin, but I'm not trying to. But we can all attest to this. When your team has a great failure in a way. Like, this was a failure for the Yankees.
Yeah.
You don't remember all the details.
choke.
You just remember, or a choke, whatever. You don't.
Yeah.
You remember that they lost. So again, the way that you guys might remember the details because you're watching and it's not your team losing. I didn't remember all. I knew clearly what happened in the bloody socks and stuff, but like the play-by-play, how it was the same two players in Game 4 and Game 5. You know, I didn't remember that because I just remember like, holy shit, how did we lose?
Did you remember when you watched it live? Did you remember feeling like David Ortiz was basically the savior of the world? Like, did you remember just being like, that guy is so clutch? It's like scary how good that guy is.
Yes, and because of some of the stuff I've been doing lately about the Red Sox and studying about the Red Sox, I now again can understand why the Red Sox fans are so distraught about him because he's not consistent like that. He was the clutch player that's kind of maybe a little bit older now and doesn't perform consistently, so that's a heartbreak.
Well, he had the game winner 2 years ago.
I know.
Right?
Well, yeah, but I mean, like in this season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, and I'm gonna be very careful. I'm not necessarily, bashing this story in sports. Like I said, I think this is one of the best stories in sports. And I remember I wouldn't say I cried, but I was filled with emotions watching it when it actually played out 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And then also, a little bit when I'd watched the beginning of this because obviously it brought it all back together. The thing is like, I think one of the biggest things, especially as a Boston Red Sox fan, was the whole reverse of the curse.
Right.
It had been, 84 years?
86.
86 years. 86 years. And, this was a franchise that was starving for something, for that long. And to see them go on that drought and just the perseverance of the fans, even in Game 4, when they were about to get swept, and they were losing up into the 8th inning. The fact that all those fans were still there. Like, for example, if this was the LA Lakers or Miami, half of the fans would have left. They wouldn't have been in that stadium. They would have been gone. They would have been on the way to the next party talking about what to do. But these fans all stood there and were with this team.
Wasn't it bottom of the ninth?
Isn't that just happened at the Super Bowl? Remember a lot of people left?
Oh,
or the
I heard about
Seattle
that.
game or something. People left.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
And they couldn't get back into the stadium. Wasn't that the Seattle thing?
Well, that happened with Miami Heat in
not
the finals
talking
2
about
years
that.
ago.
Sorry.
And then Seattle,
But a lot of fans do leave. But Red Sox fans, there's something about them that makes me have a love-hate relationship with them, that they will stay. They're a little bit cocky and boisterous in a certain way, and I'm sure they say the same thing about New York fans. But it's a different breed of people. They're not going to leave at the 8th game if their team might be swept.
Exactly.
They're going to stay and see it and hope that something will happen.
Hope for a miracle. Or hope for a miracle who's Dave Ortiz.
So I have a question for you guys. Do you think this would be remembered the same way in history if it wasn't the Red Sox versus the Yankees? Because we say this reversed the curse. Like, the curse wasn't really reversed. We have a million more pennants than the Red Sox do. They won a freaking great series.
No. It's remembered for this. So this is the reason.
Because of this. Yeah.
My thing about this
It's
being
the rivalry and
the greatest story in the history of sports. There's a lot of stories in sports history, right? There's a lot of winning streaks. There's a lot of triumph over adversity. There's
Cinderella seasons.
seasons. I mean, there's everything from Willis Reed playing on the torn,
They made reference to Willis Reed a lot throughout this.
They do, and it's on the broadcast when they're talking about shilling the bloody sock. There's the reason that it's so just integral, and I think the reason that it is in fact the best sports story is the stakes were so high. The stakes were so high, like for it to be the bottom of the ninth, for it to be one pitch away from just being over, and they come back from that to not only beat their most hated rival in this clutch game, but to also win the first series in 86 years. And then on top of that, it's like the New York Yankees are the American baseball team. Like they're the most American, they're the favorite, they're like the ultimate juggernaut baseball team. So if you're gonna have to beat anyone, and it would be the same if anybody was trying to play against the Yankees, but it wasn't just anyone. It was the Red Sox playing against the Yankees.
You're missing one of the most important things. Nobody has ever come back from a 3-0 deficit as well.
It literally seemed impossible.
Exactly. Well, I'll say improbable, but not impossible.
At the time, it seemed impossible. It was deemed impossible by everybody.
Yeah. So just the fact that's why I say I love the story so much. I mean,
what did you wish you got?
Pure.
I mean, because there wasn't, because
That's a
it
good
was,
question.
because, you know, like, I feel like when we watch these, we learn, you know, in Soul Man or this, that, we learn about Sonny and how he went about, and we learn that maybe Reebok didn't give him the right amount of offer that he should have for Kobe. Like, we learn underlying facts that help play out the story, but it was kind of a situation that they talked about. I don't know, you know, is there something that, like, I wish I would have known that?
I think I know where you're coming from. I don't think it's. I mean, I'm gonna hope I don't just step on your answer here.
Go ahead.
But I think my feeling was that watching this, it's an extremely linear retelling of the story. It's super by the numbers. Like, there's some drama to it, but really ultimately it's just like, this is what happened, game to
Exactly.
game, day to day.
It made it human, though, in a way.
It
and
was
that
just
was
like-
what was missing from the story when I watched it. And again, watching as a Yankee fan. So it gave me something I didn't have, which was it humanized what that team was going through. You know, seeing them on the plane ride, seeing them, just seeing that whole side. And I know that teams are players and people and they all bond, whatever. But it was different seeing that. But there was no like, oh, we learned what the sign for stealing was. Like, there was nothing like that I feel like I missed.
You just want to hear some depth, some nuggets, like, you know, why certain people were inserted in the game at certain times, why, and you never hear anything. I know this is all about the Red Sox, but I would have liked to hear some Yankees perspective, like Joe Torre. I would have liked to hear, you know, his, you know, what was happening when they were, like, you know, going through it, or
flipping out.
Well, the director,
exactly.
the director says in the interview before the film, he talks about why he decided to tell the story through the eyes of the Red Sox, and
which was great because it was their story. It wasn't the Yankee story.
He says he felt like he wanted to tell the story through the eyes of the Red Sox because of the romance, the romantic nature of the transition of the fan base mentality, and he didn't want to make it about just like it really truly is told entirely through the voice and eyes of the Red Sox. You don't want Yankees interviews because you don't want these biased opinions. You only want one set of biased opinions.
And you see it
But
even
see,
when
that's
they
the
try
thing.
and go talk to A-Rod and he's like, yeah, get out of here.
Yeah.
But see, the thing is, 30 for 30 is we talk about a lot. They're non-biased when they retell stories.
Should be.
They're very non-biased when
Well,
they retell stories.
sometimes
and
they are.
I would have liked actually for them to to interview Joe Torre or interview Derek Jeter or interview Mariano Rivera, who actually blew that save in Game 4, or somebody. You know what I mean? Or just get further depth. Not necessarily from the fan base, but from inside. Basically, I didn't just want to watch a retelling of a story that I
You didn't want to
already
watch
knew.
Fever Pitch.
Yeah.
That was actually a great movie, by the way.
Great movie. Great
Love
movie.
that movie. But yeah, I just wanted to hear something. You know, like you said with Soul Man or Ren University or all these other. You know, they dig deep. And there's things that we find out that we didn't know. And I just would have liked to see some of that versus just a retelling of the story.
Sure.
I hear you.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. So, I mean, can we think of... Okay, Kevin and I said this a little bit before the show started. So, the Tom Brady story, like his story of being drafted in the 6th round.
Oh, yeah. Brady
and,
6.
And going
Yeah,
to
that was
Michigan.
on the other day.
Yeah, it's my favorite doc ever. And the 6 guys taking
I
ahead
thought
of
this
him.
was your favorite one, Ben. You're starting to
That's
sound like
literally-
me.
that's
You're
literally-
starting to sound like me a little bit.
Okay, true story. So
Love
a
it.
couple years back, my roommate and I went through like a very tumultuous party filled football season.
No.
Like Sundays, like we always party a little on Sundays, but Sundays just became complete just debaucherous parties every week, right? And there was always a break between, there's the break between the afternoon games and the evening games. So you have just shy of an hour usually when the 1:30 game ends.
I hear you,
and
I'm
the 5:30
there.
game starts. And a couple of our friends were from Boston, and every single Sunday for the entire football season 2 seasons ago, we would either put on the Brady 6 every single week during that hour just to have it on in the background, or we would put on 4 Days in October.
But you're a Seattle fan, so how does that make any sense?
I would watch I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. Brady is my all-time favorite athlete. He is my all-time favorite athlete in the history of sports.
So
Seahawks
who did
are my
you
team.
root for in the Super Bowl?
The Seahawks, and I was crushed. You have a team, you have favorite players. Look, if the Patriots had lost, I would have been cheering. The Patriots won, and I just was kind of silent, and it took me about 2 weeks before I could just relax and just say my favorite player of all time got what he was supposed to get.
I think that's a generation thing. And because, and this is why I say this, and correct me if I'm wrong, or you guys have a different opinion, but I feel like my generation of people, because I'm a little bit older than you guys, does not have a favorite team, but a favorite player on a different team.
Well, that's because this generation, teams, there's kind of no such thing as a franchise player anymore this day and age.
And because I think fantasy football ruined the sport. in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, because you just
all
look for
they want is
individual stats.
kids to buy more shirts of more teams, so they
Absolutely.
make you like people on every team rather than having the fan base of like how the Red Sox do of the diehards.
Right.
Like the Red Sox will say they can respect Derek Jeter because he's a good player, and when Derek Jeter played his last games in Boston, they gave him a standing ovation. But no Red Sox player would ever be like, I'm a Red Sox fan, but Derek Jeter is my favorite player. That just would not happen.
I hear what you're saying. I'm not saying
That's crazy to me.
I'm not saying it's
I get
right.
it. I just
I'm not saying it's right, but
it's not wrong though. I'm just saying it's different.
You got to remember, and this actually will tie it back into the doc. Okay, I've told you guys this before, and anybody who's watched these 30 for 30s and seen this knows, I did not grow up a sports fan. Okay, I played baseball as a little kid, and I collected baseball cards. I completely walked away from anything sports related at 10 years old, and it was not until I was 21 that I started to pay any attention to sports again. So when I became a Seahawks fan, it was 2009, which is, I mean, that's not inconsequential. You know, I've been a fan for 6 years now, but like for me to become a Seahawks fan and then realize how awesome I think Tom Brady and his story are. They're still both kind of fairly young.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I think it's a generation thing. And becoming a fan in this generation where people do like other teams and people get traded a lot more and there is stuff like fantasy football. Yeah. Just for me, because I won't play fantasy football.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I just won't.
So one of the strengths, I think, of 4 Days in October, one of the reasons that I actually think it's quite good, and I do think it's one of the best 30 for 30s, is more on just the back of the story. It actually has less to do with the movie. But I don't think that the movie takes away from the greatness of the story enough that it makes it anything, because you got to remember, like, okay, things in my lifetime, like big, huge sports moments in my lifetime that I just vaguely, peripherally remember happening, going on, like, you know, but I wasn't paying attention because I wasn't a sports fan. Jordan winning his 6th championship. I remember my dad celebrating. I remember we were watching it, right? That's a big one. This series, I definitely remember this happening. I wasn't paying any attention, but I do remember it. 07, when the Patriots lost the Giants, the perfect season. Again, I was at someone's house, the game was on. I remember. Like, the big sports moments, the biggest ones, you remember them. So it's interesting when you see something, a documentary made about an event that happened in your lifetime, when you were alive, if you didn't care about it. I didn't care about this whatsoever in 2004, but I remember Fever Pitch. I remember this being on TV. I remember people talking about it. I remember like the influx of Red Sox hats that went on. So that's why I think this is interesting, is because it doesn't talk about the culture. It's just sort of like, look, you care about this if you live through it. If you didn't live through it or something like that, if you're 10 years old, it's an interesting piece of history, but ultimately this is made for the people that live through it. So...
But and that's the problem right there.
It's a young doc.
That
event was in 04.
No, but see, that's the problem.
It just happened. Like, it just
I
happened.
don't know.
Well,
I agree.
it happened 11 years. Yeah, but see, that's the problem.
This came out in 2009, guys.
Okay.
That was 5 years after the event.
Right, but if you're a little kid, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think that it shouldn't be made just for those that live through it. I think it should be made for anybody that's like wants to see a great sports story.
Well, it's obviously going to work for that reason. I'm not telling you it wouldn't, but I'm saying it was made 5 years after the event. You think, what, a 4-year-old is going to be watching the thing?
No, but now a 15-year-old where the Red Sox haven't won. I mean, I know they're okay and they won a few years ago, but they're to understand, like, hey, Dad, what's this whole Yankee rivalry thing? Like, why is it that way? What's the curse? What's all this stuff? To show them this, they're gonna get it right away. So I think it is more so. It's because, again, people like me who lived through this as a fan of the Yankees, it's not. If you lived through it, you know about it, and you don't even need to watch this. Because like Kevin said, you didn't learn. You got the gist. You got it was 3-0, and they came back, and they won.
But you're proving my point, because I didn't pay any attention to this. I paid zero attention. So most of the guys watching this, like, I could identify 5 or 6 guys that I remember, like, having baseball cards. Like, Pedro, Henry Ramirez, Kurt Schilling, Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez. Like, those are probably the names that I can remember. Joe Torre, I just remember him being around.
Right.
But all the guys, the heroes in the story, the ones that talk the most, Johnny Damon, Kevin Millar, Dave Roberts, Terry Francona, like, I don't remember any of them, even though they were playing baseball.
Johnny Damon?
I didn't care about baseball at all. He wasn't that famous. He's not Derek Jeter.
Right, but you said that it's for the people that watched it during that time.
What I'm saying is, so people that lived through it, right? I lived through it, but I didn't care. So I can watch it now, and I can connect to these characters like they're characters in a story. It doesn't matter that it happened or it didn't. It can be fictional almost. So you're talking about the 15-year-old kid that wants to learn. He'll enjoy it the same way that I did. it's not any more or less relevant to him to have lived through it. It's just that it's in
I
his...
thought you said it was made for people that lived through it.
I should rephrase it, because I think I
Okay.
did, in fact, say that.
Yeah, that's why I was confused.
It's generational. It's like, if this had happened in 1949, the story would be cool to me, but it would be such like a relic of a
See, I
story.
agree.
No,
I disagree. It's
no,
timeless.
This is
It's the
Thank
history
you.
of the Red
This is
Sox.
one of the best stories in 100 years from now. When they're
Yeah,
teaching sports
sorry.
journalism classes, this will be in the curriculum.
It will.
Like
100%.
it's that serious.
I
It's
usually
that
disagree.
monumental.
I told you, I think it's the best sports story of all time. I already said that. I
but
opened
you're
the
saying
show
it's
on it.
irrelevant to somebody that's in a younger generation or something of that sort. I think this will forever stay relevant. This will forever be a classic.
Okay, I'm like
Like
convoluting my
Wilt's
point.
100 points. That's ever going to be a classic.
It's never gonna be.
I said that's forever going to be a classic. Him scoring 100 points in a game is forever going to be a classic.
No, it won't.
Absolutely. Slap yourself.
Will scoring 100 in a game is totally irrelevant because the game was completely different when he scored 100 points. So I look at that and I go, I don't care about Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100 points. I don't even believe that was special back then.
That is one of the most respected records in the history of sports.
I
But anyways,
referenced it on our sports show last week.
anyways, let's get back.
Ben, I love you, but-
yeah, Ben, you're killing yourself right now.
Yeah.
But anyways,
And it
you
might
know,
be
one of-
different again because, and I don't know, maybe it is different because Kevin and I clearly grew up always being sports fans. So it's not something that, it's not like 4 years ago I decided, oh, I'm going to learn how to play the guitar.
Right.
And I'm learning this history of music
Sure,
and I'm
sure.
saying, who is Jimi Hendrix? Who cares? Because someone might slap me in the face if I said
Oh,
that.
that's ridiculous. You
But
guys
it's
are taking...
kinda, it's
No, it
kinda
is
not.
Ben,
It's kinda what you said.
You said before the show, Ben, that you thought this was the best story in the history.
I said it on the show. It was my first statement.
Okay, if you're saying if this is the best story in the history of sports,
Yeah.
and then you're sitting there saying that, oh, well, it's generational, it's irrelevant, you just kind of contradicted yourself.
You guys are... I feel like what is happening right now is I feel like I'm being interviewed and you're taking phrases
No,
out of
I
context
feel like you might have
to
just
sell a
worded it
headline.
weird, and we got it both.
Yeah.
It's
So
both-
what are
we
you
never
saying?
Agree.
Please clarify.
We never agree.
Okay.
I know.
So the first
Actually,
time
I
said
look
it,
for reasons to oppose what she says.
I
But-
know. It's
so
hard
the-
for me to agree with
the
Kevin.
statement that I did in fact make, that it was made for people that lived through it, strike that from the record. That is not
Okay.
true. That's not really what I meant to say when I said that.
Okay.
I love how our producer
Yeah.
Jesse is
Fair
cracking
enough.
up over there.
What I really mean by that, is
Okay.
it's made for somebody who it feels like the history of it relates to at least something that they can tangibly feel. Like for me, the fact that I grew up around this time period, like these players, this was happening while I was alive, even though I didn't care, makes it relatable to me. And if it had happened 20 years ago, it would still be relatable in the same way that I care about early 80s basketball history. I care about the Showtime Lakers. Those are players that I still see on TV. I don't think, because it doesn't present it as a piece of history, like it's not getting the interviews from the Yankees, it's not telling you what was going on in culture at the time, it's not trying to frame it that way, it's just the story of the Red Sox and what happened in 2004, it becomes more of a fairy tale that doesn't really, it's like, it would feel more like Wilt's 100-point game to a younger fan if they watch this in 50 years, because they're not going to have any concept of what's going on in the world at the time of this documentary, because it doesn't show you any of that. It just shows you the story. So it feels like, I think if you're watching it 50 years from now and you don't know history, it's just some story about sports, as opposed to like Rand or something else where it's like cultural and it's showing you the world at the time and racism and all these things. It's like, oh, that was the world at the time. This is a piece of history that really matters to me. I can connect to this, as opposed to this, which is, it will be relevant for as long as this like sort of era of Red Sox is in like somewhat recent 20, 30 year memory. I think it'll fade. This documentary, not the story. This documentary's importance and its relevance, I think, will fade in years to come. That's what I'm
Well,
getting.
regardless of the documentary or the importance of it, the story is what I'm talking about. And I'm
So
saying
am
the story
I
is
told you I
gonna
think it's the
stay
best
forever.
ever.
It's classic. If
Yeah,
you're just talking
I feel
about
like
I'm saying the documentary. That's
feel
what I'm
like
referring
there
to.
was a little backpedal and swim around, and I appreciate it. But I feel like I get what you're saying. But I honestly think that
I don't know. I
one
can't
of the
honestly say I get
biggest-
what you're saying.
You can or you can't.
I can't.
No,
I can't
because why I can't get it is because American baseball, there's so much history with it.
Yeah.
You ask any baseball fan,
Right.
you ask any
non-baseball fan.
non-baseball fan,
Yeah.
what's the biggest rivalry in baseball? They'll say the Red Sox Yankees, and most people will know about this situation.
All right, I'm gonna step in right here.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll do it. What do you
Producer
got?
Jay.
I don't like no type of sports. I could care less. But I am from Boston. But I could not care about no type of sports. But reverse the curse, the Yankees versus the Red Sox. I mean, I don't even care, but I would sit and watch because it would just be like my family would back up out the room the way they came in because this was such a serious thing. And I don't want to say I get what you're saying, but this is it's like saying Larry Bird was, well, he's just some guy that played basketball. No, if you are a diehard fan of sports, this story is huge. It's the biggest rivalry in baseball, and I don't even watch baseball like that, but I know
it's one of the biggest rivalries in
sports general. Yeah.
So to say it one more time, guys, the first thing I said when the show opened is I think this is the greatest story in the history of sports.
We love you. We're not saying you're wrong. I think it's.
I want that
really
to be very
clear. We just want clarification.
No, I feel like, but again, I do feel like, and again, maybe my Hendrix thing is dramatic, but that's kind of how, it's because, you're someone who learned this rather than lived it. I think it's different.
But my reference is the movie, not the story. That's what I'm trying to...
But, I mean, it's one and the same, kind of. The movie is the story.
No, because the movie only presents it through the eyes of the Red Sox, which is what essentially... Even if it was backpedal and swim around, which I'll admit probably is a little bit of what I did here.
Right.
Thinking about the conversation at both sides. No, I'm just trying to say, I don't want to come off as that I don't respect the story.
Right.
I truly do. This is my favorite 30 for 30 based on the story, not based on the movie. So when explaining Kevin's point about why he didn't like it and why I was saying I could relate to it,
right.
The reason I can relate to it is truly because I don't think that the movie is as good as the story, even close. The movie's just kind of a...
But you could say that, no one's going to remember the OJ movie, 30 for 30.
Well, maybe that's a far more artistic retelling of the event.
But
I mean, it
still,
stands on its
not...
own. It's not as great as the event, but at least the movie stands on its own as a very interesting retelling. It's a very, very cool way to tell it.
Totally, but what I'm saying is people, I don't think, will remember... I think with all these, you're not going to remember, even Rand University is some of the best ones. You're not going to remember that story as much as what actually happened in the history of sports.
Oh, see, this is now we're getting into territory where I'm with Rand, that's more about the culture surrounding Randy Moss and his youth and where he came from. It's so much less about the important part of his career, his NFL career that he actually was famous for. It's not even referenced in that story.
Right, but what I'm saying is that most people... I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, both of you, that at least 70% of sports fans do not watch these 30 for 30s the way we do. I don't think they're as popular as movies and as docs. So to equate these as the kind of relating it to an importance of how an event will be remembered if this will be watched, I don't think is a fair assessment.
That's fair.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get you. I get you.
All right, love you. Mean it.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I kind of I started tuning out 10 minutes ago with some of your outlandish remarks.
I'm trying here. Moving on.
But no, I'll say this just to bring it back to this. And that's why I'm glad we have these discussions, these panels, so people can be the voice and perspective of everything, whether it's a clueless voice or, what have you. I'm joking, man. I love you, man. But at any rate,
were you stabbing at me?
I was not. Just to the other random person in this room that said this was irrelevant, this whole sports story, and generations.
I really didn't say
I know.
Sports story.
Anyways, back to what I was saying.
Now you're putting words in his mouth.
I know. I'm just being a jerk, Ben. But anyways, what I was going to say, and this is just going to slightly counter what I said earlier, how I didn't really appreciate how they didn't go
can't stick to your opinions.
into depth. The one thing that I will say that I did like about this is the, when they did show the clubhouse. And the thing that I liked about the Red Sox when they showed the clubhouse, those guys were still singing, celebrating, having a good time. Even when they were down 0-3, they still showed up with that Red Sox personality.
Happy-go-lucky kind of.
Happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
Everyone was having a good time. I'm sure if they showed the Yankees clubhouse, it was the exact opposite.
Well, of course.
A-Rod was over here shooting up. Jeter was over here.
He wasn't shooting up back then. Come on.
All right, whatever.
No, but that's exactly what I meant. That it gave me. It was hard, even being a Yankee fan, living through this as a Yankee fan, to not feel for the Red Sox because you saw that fourth wall breakdown. And when you have the manager Terry saying, all I tell these guys to keep is make sure you keep your personality. That for me was that was enough to see those players interacting and seeing that spirit. That was enough because you knew the story.
You just seeing that team camaraderie, just that team, that team. That just team. Good. Thank you. You know, and that's the thing that I remember from even watching this, was just how much fun those guys had with each other. And it showed on the field as well. And it just showed that they truly loved. There was no individuals out there, egos, Yankees.
Except for Alex Rodriguez.
Well, but anyways, we're not talking about them. But I'm just saying, I really love the culture of the Red, because I'm not going to lie, I never grew up a Red Sox. I'm not from Boston, so, you know, I've always respected the Red Sox, though. And I think at the end of the day, after watching this, you do have an appreciation for them and a high level of just reverence for them.
Well, and they did a great job. I mean, the best part about this documentary is truly, like you said in the beginning, Steph, it's the emotion that you can see in the Boston fan base. That's why he was right in telling it the way that he did, at least for the purpose of this documentary, is that, yeah, it definitely is. It's the one-sided retelling of the story. It's from the eyes of the Red Sox and Red Sox fans, and it's for that reason it does succeed. I mean, it is by the numbers, but like, I'll be honest, this is the 30 for 30 I've seen the most times, and half those times it's because it just comes on TV, and I get sucked back into watching it again. Because it's just very engaging. It's a great story.
I really wish that they would, and I understand why they just spoke to and told it through the eyes of the Red Sox. But I thought it would be so nice if they just got a few Yankees.
It would have gotten so dramatic because it would have been taken so out of context, and the fact that it was about team and staying together and winning, and even when it's bad, and then you would have went to the Yankees, and of course they would have been pissed.
Let me tell you something, Seth. Every time you have a great story, right? Whether it's a great movie, great TV show,
but it wasn't necessary.
You have the protagonist.
But there was enough. The game itself was.
You needed the antagonist.
The game itself was. It would have stuck out on what people would have talked about more. How many times in this series did you guys mention how cocky A-Rod was and how he was doing steroids?
Okay.
It would have turned into that.
No. I don't even mean to
But that's what you said. But that's what media would have done.
No. I'm saying I just wanted to hear. Okay, what was George Steinberg?
Yeah.
What was he thinking? What was Joe Torre thinking?
He was thinking, oh shit.
What else do you need to know? You know, what was Mariano thinking when he blew I'm not sitting there get on the dirt of the Yankees.
But that's what they would have done.
I would have just liked to see a genuine, honest perspective from maybe a Yankees executive or somebody else in there that could have told us something.
Check this out. I'm gonna use your piggyback point because we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
I like that point there.
No, because I like what you're saying here, because it actually speaks. That you just put a cap on sort of what I was trying to say throughout this show.
Here we go, back again.
No, because take a story like this, right? With this is like
I think this is my favorite after show that we did of 30 for 30, by the way. But go ahead.
This is my favorite sports story ever, right? You take some of the other greatest ones, like some of the best ones, Jackie Robinson, right? That's a story that I grew up. We all grew up. We all know everything about it. How many docs and movies have been made about that? I mean, how many short ones and long ones, right?
Yeah.
Probably 25, 30, 40. Who knows? The greatest stories in the history of the game of sports. They've all been retold over and over and over again.
Right.
Every time a new, better, younger, smarter, more innovative documentary comes out, the other ones just get relegated. They get older. Nobody watches them anymore. In 40 years, this will not be the documentary people watch to retell the story. This is too good of a story for that. And there will be a documentary that interviews A-Rod. There will be one that interviews Joe Torre. There will be a documentary that talks about the state of Boston's economy and all the things that were going on around the story. What I'm trying to say about it is, so that young fan that I'm talking about, because my point was in reference to the movie, not the story, will not watch this movie. Like, we talk about these 30 for 30s. We're supposed to look at them as films. That's what we do every week.
Right.
And how good they are as films. So, like, there's not going to be a better Rand University ever get made because they took the story and the subject matter and made the best version of that story they're going to make.
Exactly.
I mean, there might be a Randy Moss story, but there's not going to be Rand.
Yeah.
This is such a rich story. There's so much that goes into it that to tell it the way they did, as good as it is for what we got to watch, this will not stand the test of time. There will be a much better 30 for 30
except for Red Sox fans showing it to Red Sox fans.
Well,
okay, and that's true. For a Red Sox fan, maybe this will be but maybe there'll be a better one. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that honestly actually goes back to validate my initial point on what I said, how there wasn't as much depth in, like you said, talking about the city of Boston, the state of the economy, all the other things that they could have dig and told and stuff that I would have liked that they did not tell. That kind of goes back to validating my point. And I understand what you're saying. Well, maybe years from now they will come out with something.
Oh my God! Talk about needed to be validated, both of you. Holy crap! That will validate my point. That will validate my point. That will validate my point.
And unfortunately, guys, before Steph gets to say anything else,
because I don't need to be validated, I'm all good, dude.
We need to wrap it up.
All right.
Steph, I'll validate you. You're
it's all good, man.
So thank you guys for wading through the gutters of discussion that we just went through. But it was a good one. I enjoyed
Super
it.
fun.
We got into it. We'll see you guys back in a couple weeks on the AfterBuzz TV 30 for 30 after show. What are we going to do? Have we decided? Do we know what the next 30 for 30 is going to be?
OJ.
We already did that one.
We already did that one.
I know, I
You
wasn't
weren't
here. Yeah, I know.
Loser.
We'll have to think about it until you guys see. Unless you guys want to do Bad Boys Pistons. You don't know Bo? Bro?
You don't know Bo. That's what I was thinking.
All right, whatever you guys want to do.
Or Pistons.
we'll
Let's
think
just
about
say it.
You guys tell us what
Well,
we should do.
no, we should tell us because then they can watch and follow along.
Nah, TBD. We don't want to decide on this one.
Okay. I don't agree. Again, bad idea.
And nobody's agreeing
Steph,
this
I
episode.
think my point was just kidding. We have to end
Do
the
you
show.
need to be validated before we end the show?
I just need that.
You guys can validate Ben Bateman at Ben Bateman Media and validate him, please, because he needs a little bit of
On
that.
Twitter and Instagram, Kevin John, where can I find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyKevinJohn. On my website, www.itskevinjohn.com. Steph Z.
And you guys can tweet me at I am Steph Z. Keep the conversation going. Have a great night.
We love you. Go Niners.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.